In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the sky above the shattered city burned red with fire and ash, and the distant screams of the dying carried on the wind as a squad of space marines dropped from the void, their armor glinting under the fractured light of distant suns. Each step they took a thunderous declaration of war against the swarm of Tyranids advancing like a living tide over the ruined streets. Every corner they turned revealing new horrors. Twisted alien forms that seemed to defy imagination, yet even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was an unspoken discipline among the Marines. A rhythm to their movements, a precision in every swing of their power swords, every bolter shot tearing into chitin and flesh with an almost artistic brutality that spoke to the mastery of their training and the sheer power of their technology. And as they advanced, the sound of heavy footsteps and distant explosions mixed with the hiss and roar of monstrous creatures, making the battlefield feel alive, a dangerous organism that could consume them in an instant. Yet even as they fought, one Marine noticed a shadow moving differently, faster, more cunning than the others, and he signaled to his squad. But before anyone could react, a massive creature lunged from the ruins, its claws rending concrete and steel as easily as paper, sending debris flying in all directions, and the squad barely managed to hold their line, firing in unison, every shot carefully aimed, every strike deliberate. Yet the alien never stopped, its eyes burning with unnatural intelligence, as if it could predict their every move, forcing the Marines to adapt, to push harder, to survive against a foe that seemed almost unstoppable. And amidst the chaos, small details became terrifyingly clear. The way blood and ichor sprayed across the streets, the way shattered stone and metal clattered as bodies fell, the subtle pause before the creature struck again, the faint echo of a distant bell warning of even greater horrors approaching. And then, as the squad pressed forward through the rubble-strewn avenue, a sudden quake shook the ground, throwing several Marines off balance, and from the shadow of a collapsed cathedral, a new, even larger monstrosity emerged, its massive frame blotting out what little light remained. And the squad realized that their mission, meant to secure the city, had become a desperate fight for survival. Every decision could mean life or death, and the tension built with each passing moment as they navigated the twisted corridors and broken bridges, using strategy and raw power to stay one step ahead of the relentless aliens. Yet the sense of suspense never abated, for the unknown horrors around every corner promised that this battle was far from over. And as the lead Marine raised his bolter and fired into the oncoming swarm, he couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse than they had imagined was waiting just beyond the smoke and fire. And the squad moved with precision, each member trusting the others implicitly, their coordinated attacks and counterattacks forming a deadly dance, every strike resonating with the promise of victory or the threat of annihilation. And just when it seemed they had found a brief moment of respite among the ruins, the shadows shifted and a whisper of movement hinted at another ambush, reminding them that in the universe of Warhammer 40K, the fight never truly ends, that the chaos is endless, that the swarm never rests, and that even the bravest warriors must rely on their courage, their skill, and the sheer weight of their will to survive as the city around them continued to burn, smoke rising like a living veil over the battlefield, hiding countless enemies and unseen dangers, forcing every Marine to stay alert, to anticipate every strike, to fight with everything they had. And as they pressed on, every explosion, every scream, every flash of bolter fire served as a reminder that in this war-torn world, victory was never given. It was earned through blood, sweat, and an unbreakable resolve. And just when the squad thought they might reach the heart of the city to complete their objective, a deafening roar shook the ground, echoing off the ruined walls. And from the shadows emerged a creature unlike any they had faced, larger, faster, smarter, a nightmare made flesh. And as the Marines braced for impact, they knew with chilling clarity that this was only the beginning, that the true test of their skill, their courage, and their humanity was about to unfold. And with a final determined glance at each other, they charged forward, bolters firing, swords swinging, armor clashing, into the heart of chaos, the suspense and terror of the unknown driving them onward as the battle for survival and glory in the grim darkness of the far future raged on, without pause, promising that the next moment could be their last, yet leaving the audience on the edge of their seat, desperate to see who would stand and who would fall as the horrors of Space Marine 2 came alive with unrelenting intensity. The monstrous creature barreled forward, its massive claws ripping through the shattered streets as the Space Marines braced for impact. Each bolter shot pounding into its thick, chitinous armor while shards of debris flew in every direction. Yet even as the squad fought with precision and ferocity, it became clear that brute force alone would not win this battle for the creature. Moved with a terrifying intelligence anticipating their every maneuver, and with a deafening roar it summoned smaller Tyranids from the shadows, a writhing tide that poured into the streets like a living flood, forcing the Marines to split their attention between the massive terror in front and the swarm encroaching from every alley and ruin. And amidst the chaos, the lead Marine caught sight of a distant tower rising above the rubble, its apex glowing faintly with an eerie green light that seemed to pulse with unnatural energy. And he realized that this structure might hold the key to turning the tide of the battle. Yet reaching it would require threading through a gauntlet of monstrous foes and collapsing buildings, every step a gamble between life and death. And as they advanced, the squad noticed small, almost imperceptible movements in the shadows, hints of creatures hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, keeping the tension taut with every heartbeat. And then, without warning, a massive explosion shook the avenue, sending one Marine tumbling into a crater, his armor dented, his bolter skidding away, while the creature used the shock to launch a brutal assault, forcing the squad to regroup rapidly or face annihilation. And even as they fought back with relentless fury, the strange green light in the tower seemed to grow stronger, drawing their attention like a beacon, promising answers, power, or perhaps an even greater danger. And in that moment, a thought crossed the lead Marine's mind. What if the tower itself was not what it seemed? What if it was a trap laid by the Tyranids, a lure to slaughter anyone foolish enough to approach? Yet the survival of the city and the mission depended on it, leaving no choice but to push forward, weapons blazing, armor scorched and battered, every Marine relying on instinct, training, and trust in each other. While the air filled with the cacophony of war, the hiss of acid, the roar of monsters, the staccato of bolters, and the thunder of explosions, each sound blending into a symphony of chaos that tested their nerves, their courage, and their resolve. And as they finally neared the tower, the ground beneath them quaked again, splitting open to reveal a massive Tyranid beast rising from below, eyes glowing with a malevolent intelligence. And the Marines knew that the next few moments would define everything: survival, victory, or total annihilation. And just as the beast lunged, a sudden, unexpected flare of light erupted from the tower, momentarily blinding friend and foe alike, leaving the squad suspended in uncertainty, hearts pounding, weapons ready, with the audience desperate to know what awaited them in the next shocking twist of this brutal Warhammer 40K battle. The blinding flare from the tower faded slowly, revealing a battlefield frozen in a single breath as both Marines and Tyranids struggled to understand what had just happened. And in that strange moment of silence, the ground trembled again, not from the beasts around them, but from something deep beneath the city, something ancient and powerful waking from a long slumber. And as the Marines regained their senses, they saw the massive Tyranid beast that had lunged at them, now staggering back, its hardened shell cracking with glowing lines of energy spreading across its body, as if the tower's sudden burst had wounded it in ways no weapon could. Yet even wounded, the creature remained terrifying, roaring with fury and summoning an even larger wave of smaller Tyranids that swarmed toward the Marines like a storm of claws and teeth, forcing the squad into a desperate defensive formation, while the strange green light from the tower pulsed stronger, as though calling to them, urging them forward through chaos. And the lead Marine, realizing they couldn't hold this position forever, shouted for the squad to advance, pushing against the tide with every ounce of strength they had left, their bolters overheating, their armor dented, their breaths heavy, yet their determination unbroken as they fought inch by inch toward the tower's entrance. And as they approached, the pulsing light shifted, becoming a steady beam pointing upward into the sky, cutting through the ash-filled air like a signal or warning, but of what, they could not tell. And before they could reach the door, the wounded Tyranid beast roared again and charged, its massive form crashing through ruined pillars and shattered streets, forcing the Marines to scatter as it launched a final desperate attack fueled by pure instinct and rage. And just when it seemed the creature would crush the squad under its weight, the ground beneath it split open completely, swallowing it in a violent burst of dust and green energy that left the Marines stunned, staring into the glowing fissure that now cut across the battlefield like a scar. And from the depths of the fissure rose a low, mechanical hum that sounded nothing like Tyranids, nothing like anything living. And the lead Marine felt a chill run through his spine as he realized that the tower's awakening might have stirred something far older and far more dangerous than the swarm they were fighting, something that was neither ally nor enemy, simply a force waiting to decide the fate of all on this planet. And as the hum grew louder, shaking the ruins around them, the Marines raised their weapons, uncertain of what would emerge next, but knowing with absolute clarity that the battle was evolving into something far bigger than they had ever imagined, leaving the audience wondering what ancient power had awakened beneath the burning city and whether the Marines were walking towards salvation or doom. As the deep mechanical hum rose from the glowing fissure, the squad tightened their formation, every Marine aiming into the swirling green light as the ruined ground shook with growing intensity, and then, through the rising dust and heat, a towering metallic shape slowly emerged, its surface covered in ancient glyphs that pulsed with eerie energy, making it clear that this was no Tyranid horror but something far older and far more calculated, a machine-like figure rising with silent authority, as if waking from centuries of slumber beneath the dead city, and the lead Marine felt a cold realization wash over him. The tower's burst of light hadn't he just damaged the Tyranids. It had activated whatever lay buried below, and now something that should have remained hidden was stepping back into the world, its eyes glowing a deep emerald as it surveyed the battlefield with a cold, emotionless gaze that seemed to cut through smoke, fire, and flesh alike. And before anyone could react, the figure raised its arm and released a wave of green energy that swept across the ruins, disintegrating dozens of Tyranids instantly into drifting ash, yet leaving the Marines untouched, as if the machine could distinguish friend from foe, or perhaps simply didn't see the humans as threats at all. And the Marines watched in stunned silence as the towering figures stepped forward, each movement impossibly smooth for its massive size, its presence controlled yet imposing. And though it fought the Tyranids with effortless precision, each strike delivered with mathematical perfection, the squad could not shake the suspicion that this ancient construct had its own purpose, its own goals completely separate from their survival. And as the Tyranid swarm recoiled, regrouping for another charge, the figure turned its glowing eyes toward the tower, and the green beam from its arm sensed with the pulsing light at the top, creating a resonant hum that shook the very air. And the lead Marine understood that the machine was not simply defending itself, it was trying to activate the tower fully, and whatever happened next could change the entire battle or even the fate of the planet. And with this alarming thought came a new wave of dread as the ground cracked further, revealing smaller metallic shapes crawling toward the surface, their eyes glowing the same cold green, rising like an army waking from a grave. And the Marines realized they had stepped into a conflict far beyond their mission or understanding yet. In this moment of rising terror, the lead Marine knew they had only one choice: push forward, reach the tower, and uncover the truth before the Tyranids, the machines, or something even worse, consumed the entire city, leaving the audience on edge as the Marines raced against time, surrounded by enemies on all sides, uncertain which threat was truly the deadliest. The squad pushed toward the tower with everything they had left, their boots pounding against the trembling ground as the newly awakened machines continued to rise from the glowing fissure, each metallic form unfolding with eerie precision, while the Tyranids, driven by instinct and rage, hurled themselves back into the battle with renewed ferocity, turning the ruined streets into a chaotic clash of flesh, steel, and ancient energy. And as the Marines fought through the storm, every bolter shot echoed like thunder, every swing of a chainsword sending sparks and ichor into the air. Yet even in the heat of battle, the lead Marine kept his eyes locked on the tower, knowing that the source of all this chaos, Tyranid swarm, awakening machines, and the trembling earth was connected to whatever lay inside its ancient walls. And as they finally reached the base of the structure, its entrance glowing with the same green energy that pulsed through the machines below, the air vibrated with a deep voice that was not spoken but felt, a cold whisper inside their minds, neither human nor alien, telling them that the tower's power had been dormant for thousands of years, waiting, watching, judging the world above, and now awakened by the clash of war, it was ready to choose its next purpose. And the lead Marine felt a surge of determination mixed with dread as he stepped inside, the walls around him lined with glowing symbols that shifted like living light, forming patterns he could not understand but somehow sensed were warnings or instructions. And deeper within, he found a massive crystalline core pulsing with unstable energy, its surface cracking with every tremor that shook the tower, as if the ancient structure was reaching its limit. And he understood that if the core shattered, the release would destroy not just the Tyranids and the machines, but the entire city and everything beyond it. And with the battle raging outside and time running out, he made the only choice he could. He signaled his squad, and together, they triggered the tower's control mechanisms, hoping to stabilize the core before it tore the world apart. Yet as their armored hands pressed against the glowing panels, the energy surged violently, sending a blinding flash through the tower, shaking the entire battlefield and forcing every creature Tyranid, machine, and marine to freeze in a single breath of uncertainty. And when the light faded, the machines halted their advance. The Tyranids recoiled in confusion, and the tower's pulsing light dimmed to a steady, controlled glow, leaving the world eerily silent for the first time since the battle began. But before the Marines could process what had happened, a deep rumble echoed from the fissure below, and the ancient machine leader stepped forward, its glowing eyes now fixed on the humans with a gaze that felt neither hostile nor friendly, simply calculating. And in a voice that resonated like metal on stone, it delivered a single chilling message: the world is not yet safe. More are coming, before sinking back into the fissure with its metallic army, leaving the Marines standing amidst the ruins, battered but alive, staring into the fading green light as a cold realization took hold. This battle was only the beginning, and something far greater, far deadlier, was now moving toward the galaxy, leaving the audience breathless and hungry for the next chapter in this unfolding war.